Imagine a world without to be or not to be, without star-crossed lovers whispering "Wherefore art thou?" or leaders pondering if all the world's a stage. These aren't just phrases, they're the DNA of our language, embedded in movies, music, politics, and even everyday speech. William Shakespeare didn't just write plays, he invented the human experience as we know it, influencing everything from Freud's psychology to Hollywood blockbusters and global pop culture. For centuries later, his words are performed in over 100 languages, shaping how we love, grieve, and question existence. But behind the legend lies a man shrouded in mystery, a glovemaker's son from a sleepy English town who rose to redefine literature amid plague-ravaged streets and royal intrigue. His enduring legacy? Not just 38 plays, 154 sonnets, and a vocabulary that added 1,700 words to English, but a mirror to the soul that still resonates in our divided world. This is the story of Shakespeare, the man who marked the world. As the timeline turns to the mid-16th century, we arrive in Stratford-upon-Avon, a quaint market town nestled in the heart of England's Warwickshire countryside. It's April 1564, and the world is on the cusp of transformation. Queen Elizabeth I has been on the throne for just 6 years, steering a nation through the aftermath of religious upheaval, the shift from Catholicism under her sister Mary to Protestantism. The Renaissance is blooming across Europe, bringing new ideas in art, science, and exploration. But here, in this sleepy riverside settlement, life moves to the rhythm of agriculture, trade, and community. And into this world, a boy is born who will one day capture its essence in verse and drama. Welcome to the birth and early years of William Shakespeare. He was born in Stratford. Stratford-upon-Avon was no isolated hamlet, it was a vibrant hub in the English Midlands, straddling the River Avon, which served as a vital artery for commerce. With a population of around 1,500 to 2,000 souls, the town thrived on agriculture, fields of barley, wheat, and sheep pastures surrounded it, along with weekly markets where farmers haggled over livestock and merchants traded cloth from nearby Coventry. The architecture was distinctly Tudor, half-timbered houses with whitewashed walls and steeply pitched roofs, many clustered around the High Street and the ancient Clopton Bridge. Guildhalls and churches dotted the landscape, reminders of the town's medieval roots. Yet, this was an era of change. The Reformation had stripped altars from churches, and whispers of Puritan fervor mixed with lingering Catholic traditions. Plague outbreaks were a constant threat, and the town's economy ebbed and flowed with royal policies and harvests. It was here, in this blend of rural idyll and budding modernity, that William Shakespeare drew his first breath. The exact date of his birth remains a tantalizing mystery, as birth records from the time are scarce. But parish registers tell us he was baptized on April 26, 1564, at Holy Trinity Church, a grand Gothic structure on the river's edge where Stratford's residents gathered for rites of passage. Tradition, and a touch of patriotic flair, pins his birthday to April 23, St. George's Day, the feast of England's patron saint. This alignment feels almost poetic, as if destiny marked him from the start. Shakespeare was born into a world where infant mortality was high, and nearly 1 in 3 children didn't survive childhood, but he beat the odds, entering a family that would shape his resilient spirit. William was the 3rd child and first surviving son of John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. His father, John, was a man of ambition and enterprise, born around 1530 in nearby Slitterfield. Starting as a humble farmer's son, John moved to Stratford in the 1550s and built a successful business as a glover, crafting fine leather gloves, purses, and belts from animal hides. His trade extended to wool dealing and even moneylending, allowing him to climb the social ladder. By 1568, John was elected bailiff, essentially the town's mayor, overseeing markets, law enforcement, and public events. He even applied for a coat of arms, symbolizing gentle status, though financial troubles later stalled it. John's world was one of civic duty and commerce, exposing young William to the rhythms of trade and community politics. His mother, Mary Arden, came from a more established yeoman family. Born around 1537, she was the youngest of 8 daughters to Robert Arden, a prosperous farmer whose Wilcote estate included the now famous Mary Arden's farm. Mary's inheritance brought land and stability to the marriage, which occurred in 1557. Together, John and Mary raised 8 children in their Henley Street home, a sturdy, 2-story house that still stands today as Shakespeare's birthplace. William's siblings included Joan, born 1558, died young; Margaret, 1562, died in infancy; Gilbert, 1566, another Joan, 1569, and 1571, died at 8, Richard, 1574, and Edmund, 1580. The household was lively but fraught with loss, disease and hardship, claimed several siblings, instilling in William an early awareness of mortality, a theme that would permeate his works, from the ghostly apparitions in Hamlet to the poignant laments in King Lear. John's rise from artisan to bailiff showed young Will that social mobility was possible, but the family's later debts taught him about life's fragility. It's no wonder his plays are filled with characters navigating fortune's wheel. Childhood in Stratford was a blend of work, play, and learning. The Shakespeare home on Henley Street was modest but comfortable, with a workshop where John tanned hides, a smelly process that might have inspired vivid sensory details in Will's writing. Daily life revolved around the church calendar, festivals like May Day with Morris dancing, harvest celebrations, and mystery plays performed by traveling troupes. These pageants of biblical tales, staged in guild halls or on wagons, were early theatrical influences, planting seeds of drama in young minds. The surrounding countryside, lush forests, meandering rivers, and folklore-rich villages fueled imagination. Legends of fairies and ghosts from Warwickshire's oral traditions echo in plays like A Midsummer Night's Dream, with its enchanted woods. Education was a cornerstone. At around age 6 or 7, William likely enrolled at the King's New School, a free grammar school attached to the Guild Chapel, just a short walk from home. Funded by King Edward VI's charter, it emphasized rigorous classical training. Boys studied from dawn till dusk, memorizing Latin grammar from texts like Lilly's Latin Grammar, reading Ovid, Virgil, and Plautus, sources that Shakespeare would later plunder for plots and metaphors. Rhetoric, logic, and oratory honed his linguistic prowess. He learned to craft arguments and soliloquies, skills evident in Julius Caesar's speeches. No records confirm his attendance, but as the son of a prominent townsman, it's almost certain. Schoolmasters were strict, using birch rods for discipline, but the curriculum opened worlds beyond Stratford, tales of Roman emperors and Greek myths that would inspire Antony and Cleopatra and Troilus and Cressida. Yet, this idyllic phase wasn't without shadows. By the late 1570s, John Shakespeare's fortunes declined, debts mounted from bad investments, legal fines for illegal wool trading, and perhaps religious nonconformity. He may have harbored Catholic sympathies in a Protestant regime. He withdrew from public life around 1577, losing his alderman status. William, around 13 or 14, probably left school to assist in the family business, apprenticing as a glover or helping with chores. These apprentice years exposed him to diverse folk, butchers, farmers, and itinerant actors. Travelling players, like the Queen's Men, performed in Stratford's Guildhall, offering glimpses of professional theatre. Combined with local influences, Puritan sermons decrying idolatrous plays, rural superstitions, and the stark beauty of the Arden Forest, these elements forged a boy attuned to human comedy and tragedy. By his mid-teens, William Shakespeare was no longer just a Stratford lad, he was a sponge absorbing the world's wonders and woes. Little did he know, these foundations would propel him toward London and immortality. But first, love, loss, and mystery awaited. As William Shakespeare navigated the cusp of adulthood in Stratford-upon-Avon, his life took a pivotal turn toward personal commitment and family. At the age of 18, in November 1582, he married Anne Hathaway, a woman 8 years his senior. Anne, born around 1556, was the daughter of Richard Hathaway, a yeoman farmer from Shottery, a hamlet just a mile west of Stratford. The Hathaways were a respectable family, owning a substantial farmhouse, now preserved as Anne Hathaway's cottage, surrounded by orchards and fields. Their union was formalized with a marriage bond, a legal document that waived the usual waiting period for banns, suggesting haste. This bond, dated November 28, 1582, was issued by the Bishop of Worcester's court, and the wedding likely took place in a quiet ceremony, possibly at Temple Grafton or another nearby church, though records are incomplete. The circumstances of their marriage have fueled centuries of speculation. Anne was 26 at the time, an age when many women were already wed, and William was still a young man likely working in his father's struggling glove-making business. Their first child, Susanna, was born just 6 months later, in May 1583, baptized on May 26 at Holy Trinity Church. This timeline points to a premarital conception, what contemporaries might have called a shotgun wedding or, in more charitable terms, a betrothal that preceded the formal vows. In Elizabethan England, such arrangements weren't uncommon. Premarital relations during engagement were often tolerated if marriage followed, but they carried social stigma, especially for a family like the Shakespeares, whose fortunes were already waning. William may have felt the weight of responsibility, perhaps even entrapment, themes that echo in his play's portrayals of hasty unions and mismatched couples, like the impulsive lovers in Romeo and Juliet or the comedic mismatches in The Taming of the Shrew. Dr. Germaine Greer, literary critic and author, said, Shakespeare's marriage to Anne Hathaway was unconventional for the time, her being older and pregnant at the altar. It shaped his view of relationships as complex, often fraught with power imbalances. You see it in his sonnets, where love is passionate yet tinged with regret, or in plays like All's Well That Ends Well, where age and agency play out in marriage plots. Their union produced 3 children in quick succession, cementing Shakespeare's role as a family man even as his ambitions pulled him elsewhere. Susanna, their eldest, grew into a capable and intelligent woman. Baptized in 1583, she later married John Hall, a respected physician, in 1607, and inherited much of Shakespeare's estate. But it was the arrival of twins in 1585 that truly expanded their family. Hamnet and Judith were baptized on February 2, 1585, at Holy Trinity Church. Twins were rare and often seen as a mixed blessing in Tudor times, given the high risks of childbirth and infancy. Hamnet, the only son, and Judith, his sister, brought joy but also the constant anxiety of child-rearing in an age of rampant disease. Judith survived to adulthood, marrying Thomas Quinney in 1616, though her life was marked by scandal and loss. Hamnet's story, however, is one of profound tragedy that deeply influenced Shakespeare's worldview. In August 1596, at the tender age of 11, Hamnet died, likely from the bubonic plague, which ravaged Stratford that summer. The cause isn't specified in records, but epidemics were commonplace, claiming thousands. William was probably in London pursuing his theatrical career by then, and the distance would have amplified his grief. This loss haunts Shakespeare's canon. Scholars often link it to the poignant explorations of parental sorrow in plays like King John, with its lamenting Mother Constance, or The Winter's Tale, where a child's death shatters a family. Even Hamlet, written around 1600, shares a phonetic resemblance to Hamnet's name, and its themes of mortality and paternal legacy feel intensely personal. The absence of a male heir, Hamnet was Shakespeare's only son, may have underscored feelings of impermanence, pushing him to immortalize human experiences through art rather than lineage. Shakespeare's initial struggles were manifold. As a newcomer without formal university training, he faced snobbery from established writers. In 1592, playwright Robert Greene famously derided him in a pamphlet as an upstart crow, beautified with our feathers, accusing the Stratford arriviste of plagiarism and overreaching. Greene's insult highlighted the class tensions in the literary world. Shakespeare, the glovemaker's son, was seen as an interloper. Financially, times were tough. He likely lodged in cheap rooms in suburbs like Shoreditch or Southwark, areas rife with crime and disease. The bubonic plague struck repeatedly, closing theatres for months at a time, including a devastating outbreak from 1592 to 1594 that halted performances and forced many actors to tour provinces or find other work. During these lean periods, Shakespeare turned to poetry, a more respectable and lucrative pursuit that could be dedicated to noble patrons for income. His early writings showcased a budding talent adapting classical influences to English tastes. In 1593, with theatres shuttered, he published Venus and Adonis, a sensuous narrative poem based on Ovid's myths, depicting the goddess Venus's pursuit of the young hunter Adonis. Dedicated to Henry Wriothesley, the Earl of Southampton, it became an instant bestseller, going through multiple editions and establishing Shakespeare as a poet of erotic elegance and wit. He followed it in 1594 with The Rape of Lucrece, a darker tale of virtue and violation, also dedicated to Southampton, which delved into themes of honor, shame, and political tyranny. These poems not only provided financial stability, earning him perhaps £10 per dedication, a substantial sum, but also honed his mastery of language, psychology, and narrative, skills that would infuse his plays. Around this time, he began composing his famous sonnets, though most were circulated privately and not published until 1609. By the mid-1590s, William Shakespeare's star was rising meteorically in London's vibrant theatre scene, transforming him from an upstart outsider into one of the era's most celebrated playwrights. His breakthrough works had captured the public's imagination, and with the reopening of theatres after plague shutdowns, he capitalized on this momentum through savvy involvement in acting companies and a prolific output of plays that blended spectacle, poetry, and profound human insight. This period of success not only secured his financial stability but also revolutionized Elizabethan theatre, elevating it from mere entertainment to a sophisticated art form that explored the depths of the human condition. Shakespeare's affiliation with the Lord Chamberlain's Men, formed in 1594 under the patronage of Henry Carey, Lord Hunsdon, the Queen's Lord Chamberlain, was pivotal to his ascent. As a founding member, actor, and resident playwright, he became a shareholder, a rare and lucrative position that entitled him to a portion of the company's profits, estimated at around £50 annually by the late 1590s, equivalent to a comfortable middle-class income. This business acumen set him apart. Unlike many starving artists, Shakespeare invested wisely, using earnings to buy property back in Stratford, including the Grand New Place house in 1597. The company's success hinged on his scripts, performed at venues like the Theatre and later the Curtain, drawing crowds of up to 3,000 per show from all social strata, groundlings in the pit for a penny, gentry in galleries for more. Shakespeare's impact on Elizabethan theatre was profound and multifaceted. He expanded the English language, coining words like bedazzled and swagger, and refined iambic pentameter into a tool for emotional nuance. By blending genres, tragicomedy in Measure for Measure, circa 1604 he broke conventions, influencing contemporaries like Ben Jonson and successors for centuries. His plays addressed timely issues. Political instability in the histories resonated with Elizabeth's succession worries, while tragedies probed human frailty amid religious divides. As a theatre owner and playwright, he professionalized the industry, advocating for better scripts and rehearsals, which raised standards. Crowds flocked to his works, generating revenue that sustained companies through censorship and plagues. Critically, he navigated the master of the revel's oversight, subtly critiquing power in plays like Richard II, which even sparked the 1601 Essex Rebellion when rebels commissioned a performance to incite unrest. Shakespeare's success wasn't just personal, it defined an era, turning theatre into a cultural mirror that reflected and shaped society's soul, ensuring his legacy as the bard who made the stage a world unto itself. Across these plays, Shakespeare masterfully weaves threads of human nature, our ambitions that propel and destroy, loves that inspire and blind, jealousies that consume, and existential quests that define us. His characters are not archetypes but flawed individuals, inviting audiences to see themselves in the drama. This unflinching gaze into the soul ensures his works remain vital, challenging us to confront the light and shadow within. Tragically, Shakespeare's life drew to a close on April 23, 1616, traditionally his 52nd birthday, in Stratford-upon-Avon. The cause of death remains uncertain. Local law suggests a fever contracted after a merry drinking session with friends Michael Drayton and Ben Jonson, though it could have been typhus or another ailment common in the era. He revised his will just a month prior, bequeathing most of his estate to Susanna, with provisions for Judith, and the infamous second-best bed to Anne, a practical or sentimental gesture debated by scholars. Buried 2 days later in Holy Trinity Church's chancel, his grave bears a curse against disturbers: "Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones." No grand funeral marked his passing, but tributes poured in, including Jonson's elegy praising him as not of an age, but for all time. Shakespeare's legacy is immeasurable, profoundly shaping literature and culture. He expanded the English language with over 1,700 coined words and phrases: eyeball, lonely, all's well that ends well, infusing it with poetic flexibility. His innovations in blank verse, character depth, and genre blending revolutionized drama, influencing writers from Milton to modern novelists like Faulkner and Woolf. Psychologically, his nuanced portrayals of the mind, Hamlet's introspection, Lear's madness, inspired Freud and modern therapy. Globally, his works have been translated into over 100 languages, adapted into countless films, e.g., Kurosaw's Throne of Blood, operas, and ballets, addressing universal themes like power, love, and identity. From Elizabethan stages to today's classrooms, screens, and streets, Shakespeare's cultural impact persists. He didn't just write plays, he chronicled the soul's eternal drama, ensuring his voice echoes across centuries. As we reflect on the bard's journey, from Stratford cradle to global icon, his words remind us, we are such stuff as dreams are made on.